Hello and welcome to another episode of Chuchu as a Ranker, and on this episode we are going to be continuing our Albums of the Year list, and this time it's 1970. And we're kicking off this new decade with a bang, plenty of all-time classics in this year, so without further ado, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. These are my personal top 10 albums of 1970. So we're going to be kicking off this list with After the Gold Rush by Neil Young, which was his third and breakout solo LP. And what we have here is a mostly folk orientated record, which features a lot of acoustic guitar, piano and Neil's beautifully wispy voice. And the album is fairly basic in its implementation, resisting any epic sensibilities or experimentation. It's simply an album of solid songs and songwriting. Highlights include Only Love Can Break Your Heart, which is a classic stripped back ballad with a lilting sadness. Southern Man brings some buzzing rock and extended guitar solos to the table for an easy high spot, while Don't Let It Bring You Down is a great acoustic rock tune with an instantly iconic melody. So yeah, this is one of Neil Young's most famous albums. I have to say though that it's never quite been one of my absolute favourites of his. I think it's a bit too meat and potatoes to sit among his very best work, but it's still an extremely solid album and more than good enough to be curtain jerking this list.
Blind man running through the light of the night with an answer in his hand. Come on down to the river of sight and you can really understand. Red lights flashing through the window in the lane. Can you hear the sirens moan?
Next up we have Led Zeppelin 3, which, would you believe it, is actually Led Zeppelin's third LP. Who would have guessed? And here the legendary Stadium Rockers are pulling back on the grinding distortion and hard rock riffage, adding more spacious lines and clean acoustic instrumentation into their sound, which I think leads to a more dynamic and interesting record than their previous album Led Zeppelin 2. High spots include the opening Immigrant song, which kicks things off with a simple yet highly memorable guitar riff and a badass swagger. Friends has a foreboding atmosphere to its menacing ascending guitar lines. Out on the Tiles has a great glammy vibe to it. The rhythmically challenged guitar stammer is pretty awesome, while Bromwire Stomp puts some American Deep South blues stank on its acoustic thump. So yeah, when it comes to Led Zeppelin, I feel like 2, 4 or Physical Graffiti get all the plaudits, and 3 is often overlooked, but for me this is as good as any Led Zeppelin album and better than most. Next up we have Loaded by the Velvet Underground, which was the band's fourth LP and last of any real note. After this, Lou Reed left the band and the broken husk of the Velvet Underground limped on for one more album before calling it quits. But they definitely should have ended it with this one though. And what we have here is more lo-fi American garage indie rock, this time with a bit more in the way of commercial sensibilities. This is the Velvet Underground at their catchiest and most accessible. Highlights in a very consistent release include the opener, Who Loves the Sun, which poisons its delightful Beatlesy melody with a purposefully miserable lyric. Rock and roll is great with its stomping pace, squealing guitar and ear-catching backing vocals. New Age has some hooky lyrics that sound like they probably gave Bell and Sebastian's frontman wet dreams, while Closer, Oh Sweet Nothing, is an awesome Loge track with an emotive bluesy smoothness to it. So yeah, this sees Lou Reed ending his tenure with the band on a nice high. Great stuff from the Velvet Underground. Coming next we have Let It Be by the Beatles, which was the Fab Four's final LP. And this album always gets a bit of short shrift by fans and critics. And while, yes, this doesn't quite hit the levels of the band's best work, it's still a really good album that's home to a handful of classic bangers. So the weak parts first. Overall this LP feels a bit disparate. like a collection of separate songs rather than a truly cohesive work. Plus the small studio outtakes and interluding banter impedes the record's atmosphere rather than enhances it, while certain tracks or additions such as Dig It or Maggie May don't really work at all, while For You Blue annoys due to George Harrison's constant mugging. But all the minor blemishes in the world won't change the fact that this album has the storm of iconic tenderness and the grandiose sweep of the title track, Let It Be, on it, or the gorgeous Loge romanticism of The Long and Winding Road, or the rocking catchiness of I Me Mine, I've Got a Feeling and Get Back, or the wonderfully folky Two of Us, or the utterly sublime acoustic balladry of Across the Universe. So yeah, this might be slightly off pace from the Beatles' best work, but it's still a fucking excellent album that's just an absolute joy to listen to. Next up, we have Bridge Over Troubled Water, which was the fifth and final LP from Simon & Garfunkel. And here we find the duo going out with a bang, putting together the most luxurious set of soundscapes of their career. From the gigantic, grandiose balladry of the opening title track, to the stomping catchy pop of Cecilia, to the building epic atmospherics of The Boxer, to the lovely Latin melodies of El Conde Pasa, to the fun rockabilly thump of Baby Driver, there's lots to get your teeth into here. My favourite off of this though is the heartbreaking ode to isolation and sadness that is The Only Living Boy in New York, a song that Paul Simon penned about the growing rift between him and Art Garfunkel. It's such a beautiful track, and that yodeled inflection in the chorus just gets me every time. I mean, I could nitpick and mention that flow-breaking live cover of an Everly Brothers tune on the back end, but hey, what's the point? This is a fantastic album and a very easy placing on this list. So we're going to be kicking off the top 5 with All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, which was the former Mop Top's third LP and undisputed solo masterpiece. And the story goes that McCartney and Lennon looked down on Harrison and routinely rejected his ideas or creative input during the Beatles, with Harrison squirreling away his rejected tunes for A Rainy Day. A rainy day that came almost immediately after the band broke up and resulted in this here album. An immediate kudos to George Harrison, as this is clearly a better LP than Let It Be. It must have been quite a satisfying fuck you moment for George. I mean, I'd like to think of Paul and John listening to this for the first time and both kind of going, what? But that's not to say that this record is perfect, because it does carry a bit of frustration with it, specifically in relation to the bloat. As good as it is, there's no earthly bastard reason why this needs to be 1 hour and 45 minutes long. I mean, who needs a second version of It's a Pity, or obvious personal outtakes like It's Johnny's Birthday, or any of the instrumental fluff that closes the LP? But an ending that goes off the rails doesn't change the fact that about 17 of these 23 songs are great. I mean, there's too much to dig into properly here, but My Sweet Lord rolls Harrison's religious obsessions into a lovely hippie-centric acoustic tune. Isn't It a Pity is a beautiful lilting ballad with a classic Beatlesy melody. Wah Wah is a catchy rocker with a cool buzzing composition. Beware the Darkness has a beautifully sad melody to its slow burn dirge, while I Dig Love has a memorable oddness to it, although at one point I swear to God Harrison is repeatedly chanting, I love Dick. I mean, which is fine. I mean, if you truly love Dick, more power to you. I mean, I certainly enjoy Dick, my own Dick, even if it does annoy me sometimes. You know, like when you go to take a piss and for some bloody reason it shoots out sideways all over your new business trousers just before a job interview. I mean, what the actual fuck? I've gone a little bit off the rails here, just like this LP. But yeah, despite its ending, this album is still great. Next up we have Deep Purple in Rock, which was Deep Purple's 4th LP. And 1970 is no stranger to hard rock, with Led Zeppelin featured earlier on this list and Black Sabbath's Paranoid just missing it. But the absolute cream of the hard rock crop from 1970 is this album right here by Deep Purple. And yeah, it's 7 tracks and 43 minutes of a flawless hard rock masterpiece that pairs brilliant impressive guitar work with rich layers of organ, giving the record a deep dolorous feel. High spots in an album with no downtime includes the opening, Speed King, with its awesome organ solos and crunching metal riffs. Flight of the Rat has a whiplash pace to its growling heavy metal, a cool machine gun guitar solo and a badass closing drum freakout. The galloping rev up of Closer, Hard Loving Man is also great. The off-kilter keyboard solo and screaming guitar breaks are totally rad. Of course, the peak comes with Child in Time, which is just 10 minutes of rock perfection, building up from low organs into a monstrous epic. I mean, that moment when the song kicks into gear and those ridiculously strident chords drop just before the guitar solo is just one of the most thrilling moments in rock history. Mwah! Chef's kiss. I mean, surely anybody that ever picked up a guitar has to have a crack at playing that riff at least once in their life. So yeah, hard rock doesn't really come much better than this. This album is just phenomenal. Coming in 3rd place and taking home the bronze medal, we have Cosmo's Factory by Creedence Clearwater Revival, which was the band's 5th LP. And here we find the classic Swamp Rockers making the catchiest and most commercial album of their career. The soundscapes on this are bright and colourful, and there's a boundless energy that comes rolling in off the record. Highlights on a flawless classic rock LP include Looking Out My Back Door, which has a wonderfully flighty, lightweight jangle to it. Conversely, Run Through the Jungle has a gnarly, glowering atmosphere and a chugging swamp rock groove. Around the Bend is a brilliant bouncing bit of pop rock with a euphoric main guitar riff. Who'll Stop the Rain is a gorgeous ballad with a melancholic heart, while the band's cover of Marvin Gaye's Heard of It Through the Grapevine upends the track Smooth Stomp with a killer extended guitar solo. My favourite off of this though is the opening Ramble Tamble, which is just so badass with its stuttering guitars, phenomenal solo section and ever accelerating pace. So yeah, this is a truly exceptional classic rock record that's as consistent and catchy as you could possibly hope for. I personally consider it to be CCR's best album, just amazing stuff. Silver medal time, and the silver medal is going to go to Moondance by Van Morrison, which was his 3rd solo LP. And here Van steers away from the more freeform compositions of his previous album, the emotionally stirring Astral Weeks, towards more upbeat and tightly structured pieces. And Moondance weaves an impressive tapestry of jazz, pop, soul and Irish folk elements into an LP that maintains Morrison's fantastic logy atmospherics while threading through an extra frisson of catchiness. High spots on a pitch-perfect and unfailingly consistent record include, well, every single second of it, but Opener and It Stoned Me kicks off with those gorgeous laid-back vibes that made Astral Weeks such a masterpiece. Title track Moondance is a cool bit of smoky jazz club swing with some enjoyable reed breaks. Caravan has the smoothest groove that you can possibly imagine and a euphoric chorus that just makes the sun come bursting out of the sky. Into the Mystic is a deeply soulful tune with some beautiful guitar trills and lyrics that pull you in deeper. Everyone is awesome with its lovely harpsichord riffs and incredibly catchy chorus, notable for ending the rather brilliant movie The Royal Tenenbaums. While Closer, Glad Tidings is so joyous that it just leaves you with a ray of sunshine in your heart. So yeah, this is an unassailable masterpiece. Every single second of this album is an absolute joy to listen to. It's just incredible. So, here we are at the top of the mountain, and the 1970 gold medal is going to go to Lola vs Powerman and the Merry-Go-Round Part 1 by the Kinks, which was the band's 8th LP and is generally considered to be the last of the band's true golden period. And surprise surprise, because here we have yet another concept album. This time it's about the music business, with Ray Davies throwing a critical eye upon label bigwigs and their thirst for money and control. As the title implies, the record was supposed to have a second part, but it never materialised as the Kinks jumped ship from their label and signed with RCA after the album's release. And Lola vs Powerman represents the Kinks at their jangle pop peak. Here the band are brimming with confidence, with every one of these 12 tracks attaining jangly perfection. The production of the record is also spot on, with the band playing more with space and adding some new instrumentation into the mix. Highlights on a jangle rock masterpiece include the emotionally salient and iconic acoustics of Strangers, the catchy gender-confused radio pop of Lola, the insanely catchy chorus of the delightfully bopping Ape Man, the creeping organs and excellent lyrics of the defiant Get Back in Line, the wonderful melody and upbeat jangle of This Time Tomorrow, the glitter rock stomp of Top of the Pops. I mean, hey, I could reel off every single track, but I'll stop there and just say that this is one of the greatest jangle pop records ever put to tape, and it's my personal pick for the best album of 1970. And that's it, that's my list, but of course that won't be your list, so please sound off in the comments section and tell me your own top 10 of 1970. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Feel free to check out this episode's Spotify playlist, link in the description below. Make sure to take care of yourself, but most importantly, just keep on ranking.